Welcome to the Road Back podcast.
We're so glad you're here. I'm Melissa.
And I'm Desiree. We're two trauma-informed coaches and real-life friends.
If you're returning to yourself, your dreams, or your sense of belovedness, this podcast is for you.
We'll pull from our own stories and hard-earned wisdom to support your journey.
So take a breath and remember,
you belong exactly as you are. Welcome, Road Back podcast listeners.
Yay, we're episode 3.
We're doing
us.
it. Yes, we're doing it.
Thank you for being here, everybody. And we're really excited about our topic today. So let's dive right in.
Yes, this is really fun because as we were preparing what we wanted to talk about in today's podcast, the theme being, how does naming something really connect to our healing journey? And it was interesting because as we were trying to think of the ways that we wanted to articulate, this was a process that we were doing in real time. And I was like, we need to just film this because we need to show how we are actually in this work ourselves of learning to give correct language to our identity, the things in our identities that we're learning, and also just parts of our healing journey. And so, Mel, do you want to share a little bit of what the process for you of your specific work and how your own gorgeous, unique, and authentic identity aligns with how you even share what you do on a daily basis?
Yeah. Great question, Des. We had a good laugh about that before we started and hit record because I was sharing how my work is sometimes hard to articulate. And there's been times that I've struggled with knowing exactly how to put it into words that feel simple and understandable to people. And also some of my own imposter syndrome that I've tripped over from time to time because I've been a stay-at-home mom for over a decade and a half. And I'd had side hustles and done a lot of ministry related work and things like that. But over the last few years, the way Des and I met is we were being trained in emotional health consulting. And where I've really focused since my training's been completed is helping people heal their relationship with money. And I was talking to somebody just the other day who was asking me, hey, so what do you do? And coming up with creative ways to describe it when there's really not a lot of people that I know who even do this kind of work. Actually, I don't know anybody who does this kind of work. And so finding language that makes sense to them has been an interesting process for me because if I talk about dealing with money, sometimes they'll assume that I must be a financial consultant. And I'm not. I'm not a financial planner. I won't tell you where to invest your stocks. That's not my training. I work with people on the emotional and spiritual elements of their relationship with money. I jokingly will tell people it's like therapy for your money because that's the shortest phrase I know how to say.
It's great because actually what I was hearing you share is that sometimes we resist naming things because it may make us feel really different. It sort of creates this element of either we are actually connecting to something that's really authentic to us, but sometimes that can feel really isolating. Because we are our own things. We're not like in this vague group of money coaching or like you said, in financial investment support. It's like you actually are your own thing. And sometimes the struggle of naming something is because we're trying to believe it inside of ourselves and kind of hold on to it for ourselves. And maybe some resistance might be happening because it might make us feel very set apart or too different. Does that resonate with you?
It very much resonates with me. And even having been a stay-at-home mom for so long, re-entering the workforce like I have in the last few years, I've had to confront my own beliefs about how much should I be there for my children. I knew when I had my babies, I was like, I know that for the first few years, I definitely want to be a stay-at-home mom. I had made up my mind that that's what I wanted to do before I even had children, even before I was married. And I didn't consider after I had them how long that season would last. And so now that I really have felt that shift of wanting to get back into work, but wanting to be selective about choosing something that really feels aligned with all of the healing and work that I have done. And so I've had the privilege of having that space to do some self-exploration and dig into what actually does light me up. Also choosing and leaning into going, okay, I want to have a well-balanced life. I want to say yes to things that are really important to me. It's been a wrestle and it's been a challenge at times because I don't know anybody else who's doing it quite the way I'm doing it. There's the wrestle between getting to pioneer something and work through what does this look like for me and what actually feels right sized in this season, and also wanting that validation sometimes of somebody tell me I'm on the right track. I want to know that I'm doing it right because those old habits die hard, and doing things right has been always a really big driving
Mm.
force for me. It's just
Yeah.
part of my wiring, I think. As an Enneagram 1, for those of you who know the Enneagram.
I'm not an Enneagram 1, but yes, like that makes so much sense. But what I heard is that sometimes in transition, it's also difficult to name because what we've named
Mhm.
before as like
Yeah.
stay at home mom, I provide this for the kids. This is my role. Sometimes roles and identities and naming things really feel hard to transition because you're in between
Yes.
and we're trying to hold hands with the parts of us that were
Mhm.
and the parts that we're becoming.
Mhm.
And I think that that adds to the dynamic of naming something so much because you are still a mom
Yes.
and you're still the emotional safe space, that home base for your kids.
Yes.
You know, you're that regulated, safe person for your family. You're still those things and you're pioneering
Mhm.
something that's very uniquely you and it's coming alive inside of
Mhm.
you and you're trying to name it and you're trying to say, is this okay? Can I
Mhm.
be this? Can I be this and that? Does that
Mhm.
resonate with you? I just think this covers so much of identity naming for sure, but just
Absolutely.
Mhm.
So good, Des. And yes, you're articulating it so well. Those transition periods can be so tricky because we like that certainty. We like being able to label things.
Yes.
And you've absolutely summed it up. Being in that place where I'm leaning into new things, wanting to be brave, wanting to step out, stepping out, seeing results, even getting excited about it and going, how does this all fit together? Yeah, I couldn't sum it up better than you. Well done. Yes. Great reflection.
Oh, well, and I think too, as we talk more about naming just parts of our healing journey, and I feel like you're really leaning into, and we might just go here right now with this. Oftentimes, we have named things in a way and it doesn't fit our healing journey. Or I would even say that sometimes part of healing is healing the way and the reasons why we've named it that way, or the
Mm,
conclusions we've drawn from that. And I mean, if you think about trauma or life or heartbreak, a lot of the meanings we're giving to that heartbreak or to that pain, healing has meant to me that I get to rename it.
mm,
I get to
yes.
hold it differently. It
Yes.
gets to have different meanings that I'm attaching to it.
So true, Des. We are both trained in the very same environment, and we actually look quite different in some of the ways that we work with people, which I love the beauty of how the foundation was laid, but now we get to put our own flavor on it. So, do you want to share a little bit about how you work with people and even helping them name things in their life? And what would you name about yourself and what you do?
Oh, I love your question. You know, the fact that we can be trained very similarly and then we end up in our own kind of things that make us authentically ourselves, I actually just love. And I think that creates such diversity and safe spaces for many different people's needs. But I think being on the journey in my own business and working with people has been an invitation for me to lean into myself, like
Mm,
parts of me that make me uniquely me and say, I'm allowed to be this. You can come or go. Like this may not be what you need, but this is me, right? Right. So part of my process is first and foremost my hands-on journey that I feel like brings a lot of value to what's happening in my clients' world.
mm,
But because of the many modalities that we trained with the polyvagal theory, I do a lot of work with internal family systems, the parts work, and understanding our protectors. Those things that have uniquely been a part of my journey are the ways I show up with other people's internal worlds. I do tend to say I'm a trauma informed emotional health life consultant. And they're like, what is that? I'm like, what is that? I don't know. It's a lot. It's a lot. And feedback from people who've obviously done counseling, because I'm not a counselor, I'm not a licensed
Yeah.
therapist, they're like, "Oh, this is definitely its own thing. You're not just consciously talking like talk therapy." And so creating this unique space for me and similarly just to share vulnerably is like really believing this is what I'm doing now. Similarly from being a stay-at-home mom to doing a lot of ministry stuff to I own my own business. and and I think my joy is really mentoring people. It's seeing people come alive
Mhm.
in themselves and their identity. So this year I started a mentorship program for my clients and it's been such a beautiful collaboration thing where we're really cheering on people as they heal, as they
Mhm.
embody
Mhm.
themselves, as they stay connected. What are the dreams of their life? Like what are the things that make them come alive?
Mhm.
And so that's personally something that I just think has been a part of me similarly
Mhm.
since as far as
Mhm.
I've known myself. I really love to see people go and be who they are in the world.
Yeah.
That just brings me so much joy. Whether it's a baker, whether it's a
Yes.
stay-at-home mom, whether it's writing a book, whether it's adopting 20 kids or starting an orphanage, whatever it might be,
Mhm.
to do that thing. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's how I'm learning to name my current season and what I'm doing with my time.
Something I wanted to highlight on something that you said. I don't know how all other healing modalities are trained, but I feel like one of the things that's really a high value for both of us is being on the journey ourselves. We both meet with our own mental health professionals ourselves. So we're not sitting in a place where we're like, we have this all figured out. Let us speak from our expertise just to you. We're actually constantly pouring in to our own process. And from my perspective, it helps us the overflow of what we're experiencing in the healing. We're not asking people to go someplace that we're not consciously going ourselves. Do you have thoughts on that? And how do you see that? Because I think we probably well, I won't speak for you, but for myself, I've worked with people as a client, me as the client before, where I walked away and didn't feel heard, didn't feel understood, didn't feel safe. And they maybe had the qualifications, but it didn't mean that it was a good fit for me. And so I know personally a really high core value is making sure that I'm walking the talk. What
Yeah.
would you say to that? How do you feel about those sorts of things as well?
One way I like to name it or express it is
Hmm.
the more I can get in touch with my humanity and it's safe for me to be really human in my journey, the safer it is for people to be where they're at. I'm naturally going to convey, you're okay. This is human. This is a part of living life on this earth. And that I think is what I'm offering myself and to others
Hmm.
just from what you're saying of like by doing the work, I'm naturally living in I'm safe to be in this process. Like I just
Yes.
have this sense of this is the process. This is going to be the
Yes.
process for the rest of my life.
Yes.
And that helps a person, especially when they're coming in in challenging seasons, you can have the energy of like, I need to be fixed. Get
Mhm,
this
been
out,
there.
make it stop.
Been there,
Me
done that.
me too. I may occasionally still show up like that with my life consultant, like, oh man, please make it stop. Which is such a human experience as well. Actually being like, we can feel this, we can be there. Someone's with you. You're not alone.
Yeah, yeah, and it might
Yeah.
not get fixed overnight, but healing is not the shortest distance between 2 points.
Is so good. Well, this actually reminds me of something. Is there something that healing did not look like for you? Like, if you think about this, it's like
Oh,
you may
girlfriend,
this is
how
like a
many
perfect
hours do you have right now? Totally. Oh, how did healing surprise me is what I hear you say. What aspects of healing were not the way that I expected them to look? Gosh, there's a few that come to mind immediately. When I first started delving into emotional health, for me, there was a lot of learning about how to connect to my heart, my inner world, what was going on internally, emotionally, even intuitively, a lot of times. And I remember one of the first things that came up for me early on was I was blown away at how much anger I had inside. I thought naively, I thought, oh, I'm going to go on this journey and I'm going to get really healthy and it's just going to all be roses and kittens and fluffy clouds all the way, which I love all those things. And I remember starting to get in touch with what was going on internally, and I started uncovering all this anger. And I remember thinking, oh, I've got to be doing something wrong because
Mm.
I didn't have a lot of people around me in that season who had language for what I was discovering. And so it was really weird for me I thought that my emotions would naturally get better. I didn't realize how much I had suppressed from a lot of things that had happened years, even decades earlier. And part of the healing process that was vitally important was uncovering some of that stuff. Just because I was in denial about it didn't mean that it wasn't there. And so I remember one day thinking, oh, I think that this is here for a reason, because I wasn't meeting with anybody at the time. I didn't have a therapist. I was doing a lot of study and finding resources, books and, podcasts or different teachings and stuff. So I was on a very self-led journey at the
Yeah.
time. And so I remember thinking one day, oh, I think this is actually here and it's been here for a while. I am just discovering something that I haven't acknowledged in a really long time. And then I had to work through the stigma that I had about anger that I had picked up growing up in religious systems and things like that. I thought anger was bad. I thought it was sinful. I thought it was naughty. And so having to come to the acceptance of this is how I actually feel, even if it doesn't fit in a nice little tidy box. And even as you just touched on, learning to get in touch with my own humanity and
Yes.
understand that the range of human emotions are not only there for a reason, but they're not inherently good or bad was a big step for me.
That's
That's one of
so
all the
true.
unexpected things that happened. Okay, Des, so let me ask you this question. What was a moment or a situation where you realized you were healing? Do you have any instances that come to mind?
For me, one of the pillars of our work with people and our work with ourselves is self-compassion. And I knew that it was creating a lot of healing, a lot of safety, an environment where I could feel like I could be in my life, in my body, in this right now life. But I struggled with self-compassion a lot. I wanted to be fixed. I thought that doing this was going to make all the pain stop. And so when
Did it
my
take you by surprise? Was it your unexpected side effect of healing that you didn't see?
so I was like, man, I just need to have self-compassion. And I would become really critical that I wasn't so easy about like I'm shaming myself for having shame. So I became critical for not having compassion. And I was like, crap. So this is one of those very human moments in the whole journey is because for me, what felt like a subtle switch is the ways I was showing up inside my pain, which I had a
Mm,
plethora of them. And, some of the language that you can use is coping mechanisms or the protectors or what we do when we feel a challenging emotion.
mm,
Whatever's happening is experiential, but this experience is pushing on a pain from my story. And how do I respond is, oftentimes we go into our 4F responses: fight, flight, freeze, or fawn.
mhm.
And I had a lot of judgment about those 4F
Oh,
responses.
mhm.
I was like,
Yep.
dang it. And so it felt at times really hard for me to move towards compassion towards myself because those protectors and those 4F responses were just right in my face. And that subtle switch for me is when I actually felt in my body compassion for the
Mm.
reasons and the ways those protectors were trying to take care of me.
Oh,
When
so good, Des.
when
So
I was
good.
like, "Oh, I'm over serving people because I don't know if I'm lovable." I could give compassion to that. And when I could do that, it was like a domino effect of self-compassion.
Mm.
Because there was not any barriers and boundaries. Everything was lovable.
Oh,
And that's
that's
now
huge. That
yes,
is
that's
huge.
this is one of my now pillars of belief about healing and about myself and the work I do with others is that we're not lovable when we are healed or when we're acting a certain way or when we're processing our emotions in a certain way. We are just always lovable and we've always been. And you don't get love because you're fixed. You don't get love because you're good. You just get love because you do. And that was a very subtle thing that I remember thinking, oh, I can do it now. This doesn't feel so impossible. That has led to a huge pillar of belief in my healing journey.
Oh, and was it overnight? Just for
It was
those who are like, should I have a timeline? Like 3 weeks? Are we good? Or,
say,
maybe 4 at a stretch? Like, talk to me a little bit about timeline, because I know so much of us have that. Just
yeah.
get me to the fixed. I just want to be fixed. Tell me the fastest way up the mountain. I don't care if it's steep. Just get me up there. Is it 4 sessions? Is it 2? What do I have
Is
to
it
do? Just
4?
give me the formula.
Is it 4 sessions? I'm just laughing because I've had people say that. So I think I'd probably been working on self-compassion for almost a year before I had a little subtle breakthrough. And then probably from that moment after to the place I am now is like maybe another 2.5, 3 years. So it's years.
Mm-hmm.
But if you really think of like neural pathway and just like the neuroscience of healing and changing your brain, I've had a pathway of criticizing myself and hating myself for the ways I was showing up inside of emotional experiences. And I'd been doing that for 40 years.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay.
So hello, like 3, 4, 5 years of intentional going after it, undoing 40 years of harsh inner critic.
Yes.
Scathing self-talk, probably. Like, that's actually pretty extraordinary when you think about it. And I think sometimes we're so quick to wanting that quick fix because we live in a microwave culture of like, I wanted it yesterday.
Yep.
But what would you say to the person who is feeling frustrated because they're not seeing that breakthrough yet? Because you've just articulated the process, the journey, the length. I mean, it's not overnight, is it? And what would you say to them?
No, I mean, something that I've adopted is this is a lifelong journey.
Mhm.
And the way I give compassion and my capacity for self-compassion is probably the max that's ever been in my life. I'll say that.
Mhm.
But in 10 years from now, I'll probably look back at Des from 2025 and be like, "Aw, she was doing her best then too," you know? And so I just sort of think about myself like I'm allowed to grow. I'm allowed to be on this journey. I'm allowed to be a beginner. I'm allowed to be in the in between stages
Mhm.
of this whole thing. And there's actually a lot of safety that I can
Yes.
find by just giving myself that permission. But I just think of it for the rest of my life.
Mhm.
If I can apply love
Yes.
to my heart and to my system in the right now
Yes.
moments, it's a worthy way for me to spend the rest of my
Mhm.
life. So lifelong, lifelong path for me. That's what I tell
Yes.
people.
And I love what you just said about love, because would you say that with some of the other things that have driven your life before, you probably did it from a place of thinking, if I just beat myself up enough or push through enough or whatever it was, I will get the result that I'm looking for. And yet you've now contrasted it with love.
Mm.
And I'm curious to know, what are your thoughts about how your views on love have changed, or even unconditional love, or God in his expression towards you? How has that changed as you've gone on this journey of self-compassion?
So good. Yeah. For me, the voice of shame had a narrative and a standard that I constantly could never live up to. And that standard, when I participated in the hamster wheel of trying to be good by that standard, it left me completely empty, completely unknown, and really just never measuring up. And applying love for me, it feels like the opposite of shame because, again, love is not earned. I don't have
Mm,
to do anything. I don't have to arrive somewhere. I don't have to be perfect at self-compassion. I don't have to be perfect on my healing journey to be worthy of love. I don't even have to like do all the right
What?
things.
You don't have to perform, you mean, to be
Yes.
loved, to be accepted?
Revolutionary. It's revolutionary. And so in a lot of ways, this naturally has had a huge effect on my, what I call my theology of God and the way I relate to God and my own personal attachment to God that once felt like I was anxiously attached, where I was like trying to perform, trying to secure his affections for me, and then living in a more secure attachment. It's like, if I'm really loved, it's okay for me to be in process. It's okay that this is taking time. It's okay if I'm super messy. It's okay if I went 2 steps back and 3 steps forward and then 2 steps back.
Wow, how much of your own process even is because you've actually tapped into the true heart of Jesus, as opposed to how you consciously or subconsciously were thinking he was looking at you.
Yeah.
When you think of Jesus looking at you now, w- what do you think he sees?
Yeah, well, right away when you asked me that question, I can feel in my body what I think he feels. Mm, I think he just feels really delighted and happy and in love. Like, I mean, I have 3 kids, and I'm like, "Oh my god, you're so cool." So it's that feeling that I imagine he's just like, "Wow, there she is. I love her." Yeah.
She, she's so silly, picking herself up again after she fell down. Go,
Mm,
girl.
yeah. Yeah, that's true. Look at her flying, look at her trying, look at her being in process, and
Looking
look
at
at her.
look at her learning how to be powerful. She's
Yes.
finding her voice.
Yeah.
She's learning to stand up for herself. To tag on to something about Jesus, I see Jesus as the most confident person ever.
Yes.
He doesn't need us to behave a certain way in order for him to feel okay with himself, because he's the most grounded in his identity. He knows exactly who he is. He has absolutely no question marks internally about who am I, what am I doing, why am I doing it. And there's such a freedom when you get into the presence of confident people. They have so much freedom to allow you to be on the journey because you don't make or break them by your behavior. And so I love how he can be absolutely with us in the process, but there's no codependency there.
Yes. Me too. That was a huge healing shift. Yeah. That he's completely autonomous.
hmm Yeah, very much so.
And that's a very safe thing for you and I
Yes.
to feel
Yes.
that
But I
he.
projected for years, I projected that he was not. Like you talk about the attachment style that we even have with God, and that's like its own topic. If I don't do it just right, and I mean that, yeah, and that gets into all sorts of conversations about our theology and all that stuff. But I think Christianity was always meant to be about relationship with God. And so leaning into the actual journey of walking arm in arm, hand in hand with Jesus, having the real time conversations and having him actually speak and seeing him in those spaces where we're messy in our humanity is an absolute game changer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. I agree.
Mm.
So beautiful. So beautiful.
I could talk about Jesus for a long time.
I know. I
He's
know.
so
I
fun.
know. He is. He's so
Mm.
good.
Does what have you named in this season of your life that you feel has helped you anchor your healing?
Well, this is interesting because I think even the process that we went on to name this podcast has really helped anchor the
Mm.
season. What I would
Yes,
say is a part of m- the identity and parts of me that have longed to do a podcast for many years. I think when we were landing on the road back and we were even dreaming about what it could be and the structure for this that would work in our lives. And we thought about seasons and we thought about, okay, we can even take breaks. Both of us have a high value, even in the people we work with. Like, it's okay for you to be in the season that you're in.
absolutely.
And so when we thought about, oh, we might take breaks and we might do this differently, one of the things that I found was a document that I had written in 2018. And it was like, what's in a name? Podcast number one. And I had just sort of like, I was like dreaming up a podcast number one. And so it was so fun because when I shared that, you're like, oh, we could talk about naming things in the season and naming parts of our healing. And that's really why even the work we're doing to name what we do and
Mhm,
name our transition and
mhm,
name the parts of us that are healing or the names that seemed what seems easier now than it did, 5-10 years ago,
mhm,
really are important.
mhm.
But I think personally, like in my actual life, it's feels similar to what you were sharing at the beginning. I think that in my in my life and my motherhood, I'm in such different transitions where I'm launching young adults into
Mm,
the world.
mhm.
And it's so much of a duality of acceptance
Yeah,
and letting go.
yeah, yeah.
And I think that the more and more I do this, like I can really hold hands with some dualistic experiences and maybe nuanced feelings of like I'm concluding one season of how I've parented.
Hmm,
And I'm also holding on to, with my other hand, I'm holding on to a completely new season, something that I don't know, a lot of unknown in it.
mm,
I can feel like even launching a podcast and having my business and pioneering mentorships and doing all these new things that I'm doing on one hand. And I'm also holding hands with that change and how that affects just my everyday life and the things I used to do more of and now I do less of. And so a way I would anchor into naming this current season for me would be like a lot of duality. A lot of duality.
Talk to me about duality and how would you describe that or define it in the even in the context of the mental emotional health world? Because that's a word that we use quite a bit, at least in our circles. So I'd love to just hear Dez's take on what
Yeah.
duality looks like and means to you, and how would you define that for somebody who's going, okay, so what exactly do you mean?
Yeah. Well, I think our brain has a high need to create a meaning, to create like a name or a conclusion so that as it's collecting information, it's like either this is positive or this is painful. It's trying to evaluate in life, this is good or bad. And so if you think about the healing process in general, sometimes, we can say shame is bad. Let me talk about shame for a second because like shame is bad. Shame hurts me. Like when I believe the story of shame, it really affects me, which is 100% true. But duality means, yeah, shame, believing that I'm unlovable as I am is extremely painful. And like a dualistic feeling is like, but also it's a very human experience. And shame showed up to protect me in some way. It's an adaptive response that makes me really human. And so I can hold on to both feelings at once.
Mm,
I mean, and in my parenting and my motherhood, it's like it's absolutely gorgeous that my kiddo is on his own and in college and they're leaving and they're hitting all these like adult milestones. It's so beautiful. I mean, truly, it's so rich and so glorious. And there's parts of me that are
yeah.
grieving
Yeah.
that I'll never have the
Mm,
same
mhm.
thing I've had, like him just being in the house and just just buddying around all the time. So holding both allows for me to even understand that I can experience two things at once.
Yes. Two things can be true. It can be both, and it does not always have to be either or. Our
Yeah.
propensity to black and white thinking,
Yes.
it gets blurred a little bit at times as we learn and go on this journey of understanding and even confronting, like you're saying, just some of those realities of being human.
Yeah. And in the black or white, I was a queen at this. I mean, I did this all day long. But if I was feeling a positive feeling, which is like the joy of my son moving out, then I was doing good. That was
Mhm.
the right feeling,
Mhm.
the
Mhm.
correct feeling. And if I wasn't, if I was struggling or grieving or felt hard to do this, then I was failing in some way or I had done something wrong because now it's hurting. And so I also believed black or white things and created meanings out of that. And so by letting go and allowing myself to feel dualistic things or just, nuanced things at once, it has created a lot of expansion and just an ability to be like, yeah, it's okay that it's good and it's hard. Of course it is. Of course it's great and hard.
Love that, Des. One of your favorite quotes that you like to say a lot that I think really encapsulate this is can't call it yet. So talk to me a little bit about that because that feels very nuanced, lots of space, not so
Yeah.
much black and white. Is there an origin story behind this? Because that feels incredibly spacious and not very
Yeah.
black and white at all.
Exactly, and I think that that's kind of the space, the way it's led me into living in a more expansive complexities and dualities, and it was actually a podcast that our teacher had us listen to, And it was a story of a Chinese proverb. It was really about pausing or delaying the assumptions and the meanings that we're giving to certain experiences. So in the story, the farmer breaks his leg and he's like, my life is over. I can't take care of the farm. And, it's going to lead to starvation and devastation. And let's just be honest, I have had those types of conclusions so many times. I'm like, this happened. And therefore, all these meanings I'm assigning to it. I just named all the meaning of my life in the future from this experience. And so to delay assigning the meaning is living in I can't call it yet. It means in this moment, I can't create a total meaning. I can't actually name my whole life or my identity based on this moment.
Yes.
I'm going
Yes.
to delay doing that and just live in, I really don't know. I don't know how this is going to be. I just can't call it yet. And that feels like so much faith to me. It feels like the thing I needed in my system to understand is that I didn't have to deny that it was hard, but I could also say, I don't know what's going to happen. Like, I don't know what can come out of this. And that left so much room for God.
Yes.
Whereas naming things and creating conclusions and having shame-filled narratives about why things were happening, according to that pain, really put me in a box, and it didn't allow for that expansive space. And so duality looks like maybe I broke my leg. This hurts.
Yes.
And also,
you're
I
not
don't know.
denying the
Yes.
pain. You're not denying that the pain's there. It's not, oh, I have to pretend like it's sunshine and roses when it's not.
Yes.
We're not talking denial. So I love that you're saying that, like, oh, broke my leg. It hurts. Yes.
Yes. And I don't know what's going to happen next. I actually don't know. And I leave room for God. I leave room for love. I leave room for I can't call it yet. And that has really transformed the environment that I'm living in.
Such a big part of the healing journey. I think so many people who have been on a journey for themselves would be able to resonate with that. But I'd love to know your thoughts for somebody who is in a place, maybe she's listening to this and she is having a hard time identifying her season, maybe resonates with what we're saying, is like, not only can I not call it yet, it's not feeling like I'm anchored to anything. Do you have any thoughts of what you'd say to her if she's listening and she's just like, oh, I need some anchor here?
Totally. There's a couple things that I think of right off the bat. So one thing, if there has been times when I can't name something, there's always a reason. And sometimes the reason is the way I used to name it, I'm not naming it that way anymore. And so maybe she needs to hear, by her delaying the labeling and the naming of something, she's actually doing something really powerful in the process of her rightfully naming something. So maybe instead of naming it with this shame-filled belief, by her not knowing how to name it, that pause is actually giving her time to transition, which is where we're like, I feels like this is a full circle now, to transition in her understanding of what's happening. And I also think when I'm not really connected to myself, it's hard in no shame way, and this still happens. Maybe there's parts where I'm like, I think it should be. There's a lot of shoulds. A lot of shame here. Maybe I think this season should be something, or I should be something, and sometimes that trips me up. So if you find yourself in those places, it's, for one, really relatable and very human and part of the journey. And I would tell her, you're allowed to be here. And even the ability to not name it is like, you can't call it yet. There's so much more that you're not seeing, so much more ahead in all of that. And so I think that it's really safe to be in process.
Yeah. Yeah. And having a season named process, or I can't call it yet, is an acceptable name for a season. It doesn't have to be tied up with a perfect bow. It's okay to say, I'm in an extended season of I don't know what's going on. But love the way that you summed that up, Des. Really well put, and I think resonates for us, the things we've walked through, and yeah, for the listeners as well.
Yeah, I love that.
Where you are right now is okay. You're
Yeah.
not behind.
You
You're not
haven't missed
behind.
anything. Yeah, you haven't missed anything. That's
There's
yours.
still time for you.
Yeah, so good.
Thanks, friends. We'll see you
Thank you.
next week with
See you
another
next.
episode. See you later.
See you.